Anika and Rajesh seemed like any ordinary couple in a bustling Indian city, but behind closed doors, a hidden affair was brewing, one that would spiral into betrayal, obsession, and a brutal murder that shocked everyone who knew them. She lived in a narrow apartment building in a busy Indian neighborhood where life moved fast and privacy was rare. From the outside, her life looked balanced and respectable. She woke up early, completed her household work, and followed the same routine every day. People around her saw a calm, soft-spoken woman who never caused trouble. Her marriage appeared stable, and there were no public signs of conflict or unhappiness. Family gatherings and social events passed without any visible tension, creating the image of a normal and settled life. Inside the home, however, things felt very different. Emotional distance had quietly grown over the years. Conversations had become short and formal, and shared moments were replaced by silence. Small misunderstandings were ignored instead of resolved, slowly building an invisible wall between two people living under the same roof. She felt unheard and unseen, but she never spoke about it openly. Instead, she carried her emotions alone, convincing herself that this emptiness was just a normal part of married life. As days turned into months, the loneliness deepened. She began to seek comfort in small distractions, spending more time on her phone and staying awake late at night. Her thoughts often wandered to an imagined life filled with attention and understanding. Though nothing had happened yet, the foundation for a dangerous change was already forming. The quiet dissatisfaction in her life became the first step toward a secret that would soon grow beyond her control and set the stage for a tragic chain of events. The change began slowly and almost unnoticed. During her daily routine, she came into contact with a man who showed interest in her thoughts and feelings. Unlike the cold silence she had grown used to at home, this attention felt warm and comforting. At first, the connection stayed within safe boundaries, limited to casual interactions that seemed harmless. She told herself there was nothing wrong with enjoying a little understanding from someone outside her marriage. Over time, those interactions became more frequent and personal. Messages were exchanged late at night, and small details of her life were shared in confidence. The emotional bond deepened quickly, filling the emptiness she had carried for so long. What made the situation more dangerous was how carefully it was hidden. Phone notifications were muted, call logs were erased, and explanations were prepared in advance. Each secret made the next one easier. The excitement of being desired again gave her a sense of control and freedom. She felt alive in a way she had not felt in years. At the same time, a quiet fear began to follow her everywhere. She worried about being discovered, about the consequences, and about how far things might go. The man involved also became more invested, expecting time, loyalty, and secrecy. The relationship had crossed an invisible line, turning into a secret affair that demanded constant attention. Without realizing it, she had entered a situation where emotions ruled over logic. What once felt like an escape from loneliness slowly became a trap. The hidden relationship grew stronger each day, quietly moving her toward a future filled with risk, tension, and irreversible consequences. As weeks passed, the pressure of living a double life began to show. Small changes in her behavior became harder to hide. She spent more time away from home, appeared distracted, and reacted nervously to simple questions. Though no direct confrontation happened, an unspoken tension filled the house. The calm routine that once defined her life started to feel unstable, as if something invisible was slowly cracking from within. At the same time, the secret relationship began to change in tone. What once felt exciting and supportive now carried expectations and emotional demands. The man involved grew increasingly possessive, wanting reassurance and priority. This shift made her uneasy. She started to realize that the affair was no longer just an escape, but a responsibility she could not easily manage. The fear of being exposed grew stronger each day, following her even in moments of silence. Her mind remained constantly restless. She worried about her family's reaction, social shame, and the damage her actions could cause. Every phone notification brought anxiety, and every unexpected delay increased suspicion. The balance she tried to maintain between her public life and secret world became fragile. Even small mistakes felt dangerous. The tension reached a point where peace seemed impossible. She felt trapped between two realities, unable to move forward or step back. The emotional strain clouded her judgment and pushed her toward reckless thinking. Instead of ending the situation, she allowed it to tighten around her. This growing pressure created a mental storm, one that slowly pushed her toward decisions she would later regret, setting the stage for a dark and irreversible turn in her life. The growing tension pushed her into a dangerous state of mind where normal reasoning no longer felt possible. Sleep became restless, and her thoughts circled the same fear again and again. She began to believe that her life had reached a dead end, trapped between exposure and emotional collapse. The future she imagined for herself seemed blocked by one unavoidable presence, and that belief slowly transformed into obsession. Instead of seeing multiple paths forward, she convinced herself there was only one way to regain control. Her thinking became cold and methodical. Ordinary moments were replaced by silent planning, and everyday objects took on new meaning. She carefully observed routines, timings, and habits, storing every detail in her mind. What made this phase especially dangerous was how calm she appeared on the surface. To others, she seemed normal, even composed. Inside, however, her thoughts were growing darker and more focused. Guilt appeared briefly but was quickly pushed aside by fear. She justified her thoughts by blaming circumstances, emotional neglect, and pressure. The idea of freedom became twisted, no longer about happiness, but about escape at any cost. Each day she delayed action. Her anxiety increased, strengthening her belief that time was running out. As the plan slowly took shape, hesitation faded. What once felt unthinkable now felt necessary. She stopped considering consequences and focused only on the results she wanted. In her mind, removing the problem meant saving herself from disgrace and loss. This dangerous belief marked a point of no return. The emotional confusion that began as loneliness had transformed into calculated intent, setting the stage for a night that would permanently change multiple lives and turn hidden thoughts into brutal reality. The night arrived quietly, with nothing unusual to warn of what was about to happen. The house followed its familiar rhythm, and everything appeared calm on the surface. Inside her mind, however, there was only noise. Fear and determination collided as she waited for the moment she had imagined so many times. Her movements were careful and deliberate, guided by a plan she believed she could control. Every second felt heavy, yet strangely distant, as if she were watching herself from the outside. When the moment came, trust played a fatal role. The space that once symbolized safety became the setting for irreversible violence. The act was sudden and brutal, driven not by impulse, but by weeks of emotional pressure and distorted thinking. In those moments, panic mixed with disbelief. The reality of what had happened struck her all at once, leaving her frozen and overwhelmed. The silence that followed felt louder than any sound she had ever known. As fear took over, instinct replaced thought. She focused only on the immediate aftermath, trying to suppress shock and regain control. The life that had ended could not be undone, and the weight of that truth began to settle in. Her hands shook, and her breathing became uneven as she realized the seriousness of her actions. The fantasy of freedom vanished, replaced by terror and regret. That single night destroyed everything she once knew. A home turned into a crime scene, and a secret affair transformed into a permanent stain. The decision she believed would save her had instead trapped her in a nightmare with no escape, marking the beginning of her inevitable downfall. In the hours that followed, survival instinct took over. She focused on hiding what had happened rather than facing it. The house was cleaned carefully, and anything that looked out of place was removed or rearranged. She rehearsed a version of events that sounded ordinary, convincing herself that calm behavior would erase suspicion. Every movement was controlled, every expression measured. To anyone watching from the outside, nothing seemed unusual. But fear has a way of creating mistakes. Small details were overlooked in the rush to cover the truth. Timings did not fully align, and certain actions felt unnatural. Her behavior, though controlled, lacked the natural rhythm of grief or shock. People close to the situation sensed something was wrong, even if they could not explain it clearly. The tension she carried inside began to reflect in her body language and daily habits. Digital traces became another silent threat. Phone activity, location patterns, and deleted records formed gaps that raised questions. Attempts to erase evidence only highlighted that something was being hidden. What she believed were clever precautions slowly turned into signs of guilt. The more effort she put into controlling the story, the more fragile it became. As days passed, pressure increased. Sleep disappeared, and anxiety became constant. She replayed the night repeatedly in her mind, worrying about every overlooked detail. The crime no longer felt hidden. It felt like it was waiting to be uncovered. What she had thought was a successful cover-up was actually unraveling piece by piece. The truth, buried under fear and lies, was beginning to surface, moving steadily toward exposure and consequences she could no longer avoid. The investigation began quietly but methodically, with police observing patterns that did not fit the story she had carefully constructed. Small inconsistencies in her statements, combined with eyewitness reports and digital records, started to form a trail leading directly to her. Every detail, once overlooked, became a piece of a larger puzzle. Investigators noticed unusual phone activity, unexplained absences, and subtle changes in behavior that hinted at a hidden truth. What she had believed was a perfect cover-up began to crumble under scrutiny. As the detectives dug deeper, the secret affair came to light. Messages, call logs, and hidden contacts revealed the emotional entanglement that had preceded the crime. The man involved in the relationship was traced, his own behavior providing further clues. Evidence connected the planning stages of the act to her, confirming suspicions that had been growing quietly. Each revelation shocked those who knew the family, shattering the image of normalcy that had been maintained for so long. Neighbors, relatives, and friends were stunned to learn the extent of deception and betrayal. The police reconstructed the night of the murder, using forensic evidence and timing analysis to match her actions with the crime. Every attempt to hide the truth was accounted for, leaving no room for doubt. The affair, once a hidden escape, became the central element in the case against her. What had begun as emotional loneliness transformed into a criminal act, and now the web of secrecy was completely exposed. The investigation revealed not only the act of murder, but also the dangerous power of hidden desires and unchecked obsession, leaving everyone involved with a sense of disbelief and horror. The case reached its conclusion with a sense of finality that felt both shocking and inevitable. Arrests were made, and the legal process began, bringing the hidden story into public view. The woman faced the consequences of her actions, and the man involved in the affair was also held accountable. Families and friends struggled to reconcile the image of the person they thought they knew with the reality revealed by the investigation. The life she had once carefully maintained was destroyed, and the consequences of her decisions could no longer be avoided or undone. The impact extended beyond legal punishment. The community around her was left in disbelief, grappling with the idea that such betrayal and violence could occur in what appeared to be an ordinary household. The tragedy served as a warning of how quickly secrets, if left unchecked, could spiral into irreversible destruction. Her relationships were shattered, and the trust of those closest to her could never be restored. Every lie, every hidden choice, had contributed to the chain of events that led to this catastrophic ending. Even after the trial, the story continued to resonate. Media coverage, social conversations, and online discussions analyzed each step, each mistake, and each hidden desire that had fueled the crime. What had begun as emotional loneliness and a secret affair ended in a brutal act that permanently altered multiple lives. The narrative became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangerous intersection of secrecy, obsession, and impulsive decision-making. In the end, the lesson was clear. Hidden desires, left unchecked, can lead to irreversible tragedy, and no amount of planning can escape the consequences of dark choices.